We're so done with new year, new you. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. It's time to talk baseball with Bally National MLB writer David Brown. David, how are you?
Hi, Andy. I'm fully recovered, mostly.
Yes, I didn't disclose why you were on the injured list.
Well, I mean,
without designation,
that gives it away right there. It's like
it's true. Yeah, it's kind of like, and this would be the opposite, but it's kind of like the players that all of a sudden aren't active when their team goes to Toronto.
Right.
Well, it's like, well, how come that guy? Oh, I know why that guy's not playing.
Well, don't make it sound like I didn't get vaccinated.
No, I said it's the opposite of that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't hear opposite.
I mean, I don't want to disclose your vaccination status, but you just did. You are fully vaxxed and waxed. We're glad you're back.
Yeah. So I was seriously under the weather with the virus du jour.
Wow.
And but I'm feeling stronger every day, like the band Chicago would say.
I think it was 2007, maybe, where maybe I'm way off, but I don't think it was 2015. It was a year when the Cubs were not supposed to be good, and were good. And Len Kasper dropped that lyric, like, during a game. The Cubs are feeling stronger every day. And then for a while, that was like, they threw that into the bumper music. So every once in a while, you would hear it. And I always thought that was kind of a nice touch. They didn't make a big deal out of it, but if you had heard him say it, then, every couple of games, they'd either go to or come out of commercial, and you'd hear that song.
Right. Kind of the Twitter hashtag of its time, whenever that was. Sort of.
So speaking of the Cubs, they're still bad, but they are. I always joke because they're super hot. They are kind of, for them, they're maybe not hot. They're more than tepid. They have won 4 consecutive series now after losing 10 games in a row, which is always a good thing to start.
But double-check that? There wasn't a tie in there?
Yeah, I think I probably was wrong, but now I have to own it.
I shouldn't have said anything.
No, they really did. They have won series against. So this is true to them. They lost a series to the Pirates.
Of course.
Where they lost games 12-1, 7-1, and 7-8, but they won a game 14-5. But then they won a series in St. Louis against the Cardinals, at home against the Reds, then at home against the Boston Red Sox, and then they are just coming off winning 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee, where the only game they lost was one where they, in exciting fashion, had tied the game in the 9th.
Yeah.
Only then to, on an inside the park home run by Seiya Suzuki, only to lose it in the or get it tied in the 9th and lose in extra innings. on the most unlikely thing that can ever happen, a 3-run home run by Victor Caratini. So according to Taylor McGregor, and nobody runs the Googles like Taylor McGregor, that's the only game in Major League history where these 3 things occurred. A player hit an inside the park home run, Seiya Suzuki. A player hit his first Major League home run, Nelson Velazquez. And a player hit a walk-off home run, Victor Caratini.
A unicorn game.
History in Milwaukee. How exciting. As we're recording this, Mark Leiter Jr. is pitching against the Dodgers, and this is a game I would guess that 4 or 5 Cub position players will probably pitch in before it's done. So we won't get into that. We can't. That would be an unlawful retransmission and rebroadcast of a Major League game if I describe much more of it. What I want to ask you about is the Cubs are in an interesting position of their own volition. They decided that this wasn't worth winning this year, given the roster that they assembled. But they continue to play guys like Jason Hayward until he got hurt, and Andrelton Simmons, who's playing second base tonight. And most puzzling, well, I guess the Hayward one is most puzzling because he can't do anything. David Ross is very fond of DHing Yan Gomes, which is not good. In his brief career as the manager of the Cubs, although I guess 3 years for a Cub manager, he might be like the 4th longest tenured Cub manager of all time at this point.
He's Frank Lucchese, I'll tell you that.
He just passed Gene Michael on the all-time wins list with 12. He has a troubling history of DHing backup catchers, including the aforementioned Victor Caratini, who DH'd quite a bit during the pandemic season, even though he got like 4 hits as a designated hitter. Gomes is hitting well under 100 as a DH. This is not a good look. And the Cubs at times this year, although right now their prime trade bait pulled his hamstring. So Wilson Contreras is sitting on an ice bag. But they often, in these recent days, are playing 3 catchers.
I'm trying to think. Do they have a third? Is there a third catcher on their roster?
The great, you are forgiven if you either forgot or didn't know. It's P.J. Higgins.
I did forget.
And apparently he could play first base. And so with Frank Schwindel out, Ross will play occasionally. If it's a lefty, he doesn't want Alfonso Rivas to face.
Right.
He will play P.J. Higgins. And it's like, okay, Dave, I know you were a backup catcher. Not you. David Ross. I don't want to get you confused. I know you were a backup catcher when you played. And you have a fondness for backup catchers. But you should also know, because you were a backup catcher, backup catchers are bad. And they're really only supposed to be the backup catcher. So stop giving them other at-bats, because I don't want to watch it.
Well, you remember when he was a player. I mean, you mentioned that he was the backup catcher, but David Ross was always considered one of those backup catchers who could hit for a backup catcher. It wasn't like he was considered great, but it's a guy you'd put in against left-handed pitching, whatever. Maybe platoon him sometimes, so maybe he feels like he has a kinship, and
I'm sure
he can sort of transfer that, whatever that is, the reality of that to Yan Gomes.
He spent the bulk of his career in the National League.
True.
And when he was in Boston, he played with Big Papi. So not a lot of DH opportunities for David Ross.
No, that's true.
Do you think when he was like sitting on the bench in Pittsburgh or the Dodgers or the Braves that he would just kick back and go, if we had the DH, I'd hit 35 homers a year. And maybe he just thinks he can give that opportunity to any backup catcher, and it'll be great.
Well, you mentioned that P.J. Higgins is on the team, and that gives, that sort of takes the anxiety or the trepidation away from, oh no, we can't have. What if the catcher goes down? Well, they don't have that problem because they do have a backup catcher.
That's right. They do.
So,
and by the way, if you ever go to P.J. Higgins, Try the loaded nachos. He sounds like a sports bar in a strip mall.
Is Richard Melman still alive?
I don't know. Let us entertain you. So
that doesn't make it a good decision, but I mean, it helps explain it.
No, I have a feeling he's like, hey, backup catchers are people too. Like, no,
right.
No, you're not. I'm sorry, you're not.
All right. Well, let me ask you this, Andy. Who would you be DHing?
Well, I had a bone to pick, and I saw it coming. So the Cubs called up a fantastically named Narciso Crook.
Yes.
And so who came off the disabled list? And I'm like, oh no. Oh, Seiya. Seiya came off the disabled list. And I was like, if they were smart, they would dump like Andrelton Simmons. Because, I mean, what does he do? He doesn't do anything. But they're going to send Crook down, and then they're going to just go right back to DHing Yan Gomes. I mean, that's exactly what they did. Now, it's one of my frustrations with the Cubs is that they're not good, but we knew they were going to be good. But they could be more fun than they are.
Yeah.
And I think they should probably start to worry about that because they own a TV network, for God's sakes. They think you'd want people to occasionally watch it. They, like Nelson Velasquez and Narciso Crook, I have no idea if either one will ever be worth a damn. But I can tell you, I know that Yan Gomes is never going to be a DH. And I can tell you that Andrelton Simmons is basically, he's now completely just a glove. And on a 60-win team, you don't need it. Maybe, this is crazy talk, I know, maybe you should be using this awful season to find out if those two guys can actually play. And if they can, great. And if they can't, then you don't waste time next year because you got other guys you could bring in and kind of find out. Because Nelson Velasquez is actually like fun to watch. He's bigger than I thought he would be. He's kind of I thought he was a skinny little guy. I'm sure he was at some point. But he's really is fast enough. He can legitimately play center field, and he could throw. He's already thrown a guy out at home plate, and in a game just the other night, he basically chased poor little Colton Wong around the bases. There were two long fly balls. Wong tagged up from first to get to second, and was shocked to see the ball was basically meeting him at the bag. And then later he tagged up and went to third and almost got thrown out by Velasquez. Right. And he can hit. So they should play him. And I would like to see them play guys like Narciso Crook instead of wasting at bats on Yan. Because I've seen people go, well, they're showcasing Yan because they're gonna trade him.
Everybody knows what Yan can do, whatever that is.
It's like in fact, showcasing him would be, and most effectively would be not playing him.
They don't need to know any more than they know already. I mean, let's not give them too much info if we want to trade him.
It's like Bob Uecker used to say that the less he played, the better he was. And the more secure his spot on the team. And he used to joke, bench me or trade me, was his old thing. in his book, Catcher in the Rye, one of the great WRY.
Yes.
One of the great baseball books ever written.
I checked it out of the library.
He talks about the year that whatever catcher he was backing up in St. Louis got hurt. And he's like, oh, God, I'm screwed. Because now I'm going to have to play. And they're going to realize I can't play. And he goes, but showing what a clutch player I was, a week later, I got hurt. He lives I stayed in St. Louis for 2 more years thanks to that. That's how the Cubs should be treating Yan. I got news for people. They're not trading Yan Gomes. Yan Gomes is going to be the catcher when they trade Wilson. That was their plan from day one.
Okay, so you got to keep him ready for that moment by DHing him.
Right. Got to get Yan a lot of at-bats. Why? I don't know. So
it sounds a little bit, the manager situation sounds a little bit like what La Russa does with the White Sox when they play Larry Garcia instead of maybe somebody who can hit. And we're just not even talking about starting, but pinch hitting opportunities. There have been a bunch. People have been complaining about, a certain rally would happen and, you'd stick with Larry and La Russa and Ross, have that old school Neanderthal, they got to go with the old guys, you got to earn it, to blah, blah, blah.
Oh, it's all the Dusty Baker. We're in the earn it business.
Yeah. Right.
Got to make
so
sure.
I think there's a little bit of that going on.
Got to get Ramon Martinez some at-bats.
Moni. Yeah.
Why do we need to get Ramon Martinez at bat? Ramon doesn't even want at-bats. Just ask him.
He knows better.
I'm fine. It's cold today. Let one of the kids play.
Right.
But for good news for Cub fans is I will admit this. I forgot about Seiya Suzuki for a while. He was just gone. That's
took a while.
And then somebody be like, well, how about Seiya? Oh, that's right. We do have a good player. Where is he? Oh, that's right. And I think part of it is what happened to him. So in typical Cub fashion, it even happened in Cincinnati, which seems like it was always where the Chris Bryant, he's going to be fine injury that put him on the disabled list for 12 weeks would happen. Seiya dove back into a base, hit one of his finger on his left hand weird on the bag, and they're like, oh, it's fine. He jammed it. We're not even going to x-ray it. Then a couple of days later,
right.
They see that it's like pointing in the wrong direction. And like, hey, Seiya, how long has it been like that? And through the interpreter, he's like, well, since I jammed it on the bag, dumbass. Like, oh, well, let's x-ray it. Then they x-ray it. So x-rays were fine. We don't even think we're going to need to put him on the injured list. And then they play 6 games without him. And then they put him on the 10-day injured list. And then a month and a half later, he's finally playing again. It's like, are we ever? And it's funny because right in the middle of that, they announced the Cubs trainer, PJ Manville, had been selected for the All-Star game. And I joked. I said, oh, good. Well, that was before Bryce. It was right. I guess we found out right about the time Bryce Harper broke his thumb. And I was like, well, just send Bryce to the All-Star game. PJ will take care of that for him. He's good with hands. But yeah, so Seiya came back, and then it's like, oh, that's right. He's fun to watch. And so that gives us another reason. So they play in Seiya, and we like Christopher Morel.
Yeah.
He's fun. And the Cubs have a couple of pitchers who aren't terrible to watch, Keegan Thompson and Justin Steele. And Marcus Stroman is supposedly coming off the disabled list this week.
He's the
Drew Smiley is going to pitch this weekend for the Cubs. I think they might. They're only 9.5 games out of the third wild card spot.
Mm.
Here comes the charge. What's that? Isn't there like a rule of thumb that, you're 9.5 out, but you should take, of all the teams in front of you, you add those games to it too.
Right.
And by that math, the Cubs are 47.5 games out of the third wild card spot. So, well, we'll see. Maybe they'll be adding at the trade deadline instead of selling.
Mm.
Or maybe they won't because they're bad. So speaking of rehab starts, did you see the aftermath of the Chris Sale rehab start?
I did. He beat up dead
Worcester?
TV in a hallway in a minor league ballpark.
Up there in Worcester.
Yeah.
How is that Worcester? I don't know. But it is. So, I try not to make too big a deal. I worked in minor league baseball for 1 year. So it's not like I'm a minor league baseball expert. But I could tell you, if he had trashed the hallway for the Beloit Snappers, the other players would have just looked at him like, they're never going to fix any of that.
That poor wall.
It's like, you just screwed. The hallway was bad enough, and they just destroyed it. It's going to be that way for the next 9 years.
Right. Yeah, it's not high in the priority. Well, like I said, he destroyed, again, a TV that already was not working.
Yes.
I think because another player broke it.
Probably.
I'm not sure about that.
Probably a previous rehab.
Yeah. Who knows when that happened? They're not on the priority list. So
I think Calvin Schiraldi took it out.
Right. It was an
early
old
in the '86 season.
Yes.
He took the TV out. It's a 13-inch. It was a height of technology at the time. It had a VCR built into the bottom of it.
Right.
And
it was only 13 inches, but it was a TV from the 80s, so it weighed way too much to move. That's why it was still there.
Right. Now that it was actually holding up that part of the clubhouse. And it's now structurally unsound, thanks to Chris Sale. He's just a weird dude. I mean, that won't even make and then he complained about the fact that somebody videoed it.
Right.
And the way he said was really weird. He's like, if I was at Bank of America, nobody would have cared. I'm like, if you went into a Bank of America and started trashing stuff, people would care, Chris.
Yes.
It's a bank. You'd probably get shot at by the security guard.
Right.
I think what he meant was, if I was a bank teller and I threw a fit at work, nobody would care. And I'm like, I think they would, because you're handling people's money. It's a bad example.
Players, sometimes they're just a little bit removed from the reality of us regular humans.
I feel bad for him. I know if Drake LaRoche had been there to help calm him down, I think that would have helped. I think it would have. It's been fun to see, like, some of the guys on rehab assignments, like Jacob deGrom, and you saw the ridiculous uniform he had to wear. It was like the best was the Robinson Cano's first game in El Paso, and they wore the SpongeBob jersey. He's a guy who, if not for a failed PED test, would be a sure thing Hall of Famer, wearing a SpongeBob jersey in his first game, as he's debased himself to try to play his way back to the big leagues. But then you go the other way, and you've got like crazy Max Scherzer, like Mr. Intensity,
right?
The guy who wouldn't let the I think we talked about it on this podcast, right? The poor guy was trying to throw out the first pitch. Max wouldn't let him because he'd already gotten to the mound.
Right.
He made his rehab assignment, and he bought all the guys AirPods, and somehow managed to got a $6,000 meal catered for them. It's a sad state of minor league baseball that it's like it takes like a major leaguer rehabbing for them to actually get a decent meal at the ballpark. It's
kind of like those stories of people's friends or acquaintances. They buy this person a car so they don't have to go take the bus every day 60 miles to work or whatever. And people are like, oh, it's such a heartwarming story, except for the fact that there's like all kinds of people that can't afford cars to go to work. It's sort of missing the forest for the trees a little bit.
I'm sure there was somebody on the team who was like, hey, thanks, Max. Couldn't you have just given us the money and we could have we could have bought groceries for a few weeks? Would that no? All right, that's great.
Right. Because I could buy like 4 steaks at a lesser restaurant with us. But
guys are putting they're taking steaks off the thing and putting it in their duffel bag.
Right.
Taking this on the road trip.
They're like Uncle Frank in Home Alone on the airplane with the silverware. And is that real silver?
That's good stuff. Yeah. Anyways, and it's not even won't even be the clubhouse thing that Chris Sale is most remembered for, because it'll still always be the time that he took. He didn't even take So the Sox were wearing ridiculous throwbacks.
Yeah,
they were like I'm trying to think of what year they were. They were like the pajama tops from like the 70s, right? I think that was the throwbacks. And he decided
he was going to. It was the black or the blue, but that was.
Yeah, and he thought he was going to look ridiculous in it. I'm like, Chris, you look pretty. You're like a mop. With, right. You look ridiculous in anything. Just wear it. But then they said, well, he took scissors to all the jerseys so they couldn't wear them. And that turns out he didn't. He took a knife to all the jerseys. So
was it a box cutter or a knife?
It's probably a box cutter. But can you imagine being like the clubby who just walks in to check how things are going? And there's Chris Sale with some sharp object slashing everything. It was just, he just took like that. He just took a few steps back, like right back out of the clubhouse.
Yeah, the like the GIF of the guy who comes home and his apartment's on fire.
Hey, Chris, what's up? Oh, I think I left my headlights on. You just keep doing whatever you're doing.
I didn't see nothing. You don't know me. Yeah, and people are like, well, I want my ace to have intensity, and it's,
Yeah,
you think about like the thing. No, you think about, you mentioned Max Scherzer. I mean, there's a guy who can get a little nuts without necessarily. I mean, maybe he'll have at it with the guy throwing out the first pitch or whatever, but he's got his limits. He's not gonna commit a Class D, misdemeanor or whatever to get through the day.
So Wayne Randazzo,
Yep.
he tweeted out after Max's return. I don't remember what his actual tweet was. He goes, you get two things with Max Scherzer. And it was like intensity and something else. And I just tweeted back to him. You get two things. You get a brown eye and a blue eye. Wayne thought that was pretty funny.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you know that? And nobody ever talks about it. The fact that he has
Did I know that he has
heterochromia.
two different colored eyes, or Jerome Bettis is from Detroit? No, I didn't know that.
When he was pitching for the Nationals, they would actually turn the scoreboard on the wall behind him would just be that close up of both eyes.
Right.
It was just the creepiest thing. It's like,
yeah,
it's like, do we really? We don't need. They don't. It's supposed to be like a cute little fact. We don't need it.
Right.
We don't need it glaring at us.
We don't need to be
for
frightened.
3 hours. I got a soft spot in my heart for Max. When the Nationals took the lead in Game 5 in the 2017 NLDS against the Cubs. And the Cubs had experienced it finally the year before, which was big spot, bullpen door opens up and outruns your ace pitcher, like when John Lester came in Game 7. And you're like, holy shit, this is what it feels like when you have a real team, you get to do this. Nats get the lead. Their tortured playoff history was about to end. Here comes Max. And the Cubs had that ridiculous inning that had everything in it. It had, like catcher's interference and an error and whatever. And Max gave up like 5 runs and the lead.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I appreciate that. It's good stuff.
You have a heart.
Yeah. Yeah. My heart has limits. So that was, we already mentioned Dusty once before, but that was a game managed by Dusty Baker. They announced the Futures Game rosters today. And Darren Baker is on the Futures Games rosters. And so I mentioned to you right before we started recording that I made a pithy little tweet today when the rosters came out, and the Cubs have one guy on the Futures Game rosters, and he's on the U.S. team. It is scrappy center fielder Pete Crow-Armstrong.
Yes.
And I tweeted out, how can the Cubs have 97 of the top 100 prospects in baseball? How do they only have one guy in the Futures Game? And I'm like, oh, isn't that funny? I even hashtagged it with the prospect perverts. I patting myself on the back. And then one of my Twitter followers replied, but tagged Keith Law in it. Keith Law took it seriously.
He sicked Keith Law on you.
And it's like, well, they would have had Brennan Davis on it, but he's had back surgery. Like, okay, that was the point. The point is, Cub fans are a little too giddy about this farm system, and everybody's great. Every prospect is amazing. It's going to be the best one ever. But it's nice to have Pete on the team. But I noticed, so Keith wrote, actually he used the reply, he's savvy, to link to an article he had just written for The Athletic, going over the Futures League rosters, or Futures Game rosters, and what the picks he thought were good and the ones he thought were not so good. You'd be shocked to know, not a fan of Darren Baker being on the Futures Game roster. Because in Keith's words, Darren is not actually a prospect. In fact, here it is right now. It starts, Baker is not a prospect. He's Dusty's son, and he has speed, and that's it. I've seen him a ton here in Wilmington, where he's hitting 264, 328, 347 as a 23-year-old and a 4-year college product in high A, making him too old and too experienced for the level. And he said basically because the Nats already have Cade Cavalli on the team, they don't need poor little Darren. I do think it would be really funny if they do a post-game press conference and Darren is the subject of the post-game press conference, that he sits at the dais with Dusty on his lap. And they shouldn't explain it. Don't say a word. Just play it straight. Dad sits on your lap. You just answer the questions. The two of you are done. The two of you just get up and walk out.
Right. Just like it was 2004.
Now, I wonder if the game's in L.A., so there's a Dusty connection because he was a Dodger. Mm-hmm. But if the game had been in San Francisco, could they have somehow rigged it in the Futures game where at some point JT Snow had to run on the field and grab Darren and pull him off the field? They just reenact the time that how old was he when he was the bat boy? It's 3?
It was 3, maybe 4, but no older than
yes, it was adorable, but he had no business being out there.
No, being a worker.
And he thought the ball, he said, "Oh, I got to go get the bat."
Right.
And the ball was in play in the playoffs, right? Yeah. And then they had to institute the minimum age for bat boys or bat people, bat children,
bat persons,
bat children, bat kids. What would I don't know what the term would be.
Bat kids is good.
The bat kids, yeah. It sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon when we were kids.
Yeah.
They were spinning off superheroes whenever they could just to kill time. The Bat Kids. Darren Baker, not the only legacy in the Futures game. So Mark Leiter Jr. started the game tonight for the Cubs. So this would be his cousin?
Cousin, yes.
Jack
Leiter.
Is,
Wait.
Right, because Mark and Al are brothers, right?
Yeah, I thought Al was Jack's uncle still.
Oh.
Is there a Cooper Manning Leiter? Or is it, who is?
Is there a couple? One of the annoying things about that is that they pronounce it Cupper. And that really bothers me. It's the name it has 2 O's in it. It's Cooper. I know you have weird drawls down there. I always thought Al was Jack's dad. Maybe not.
Yeah, he is. I'm not sure why I was confused. Okay. I just double-checked. He is.
Well, probably because Mark Leiter was a prospect before, and Jack, and he was Uncle Al for him.
Maybe.
Yeah, Jack's his kid.
All right. Although that would have been obvious that Mark Leiter was not
wouldn't it be
Leiter's
great?
son.
Wouldn't it be great if Mark Leiter Jr. was Al's kid?
In reality?
He's we thought it was funny. We just named him Mark Leiter Jr.
Yeah, it's an inside joke.
I want to honor my brother. You'd be shocked to know the Jack Leiter, he's the second pick in last year's draft, right? Solid pick in the Futures game. Keith Law, not having it. So he's famous enough to belong here, but he hasn't been very good. He started at Double-A, and he has a 5.36 ERA and a 12.5% walk rate. Disappointing for a pitcher with advanced command for a college guy. Generally succeed with location rather than pure stuff. The good news, supposedly, it was good news if it's true, if it ends up working out. I'm not denying that I'm not saying it's false. Brennan Davis, the Cubs' top prospect, who would be patrolling one of the outfield spots right now had he not screwed up his back this year and had back surgery, he expects he's going to play again this season. Most likely late in the AAA or the AAA season. He wants to get some at bats in. I'm sure they'll probably, if he's still ambulatory at the end of that, they'll probably send him to the Arizona Fall League, and then we could start this whole thing all over again. Again next year. Do you know who Brennan Davis's dad is?
Yeah, but I forgot.
He's a former Chicago Bull, Kansas City King, and the original coach on the NBC Saturday morning show Hang Time, where he was replaced by Dick Butkus.
Reggie
Theus. And one of the things I can't wait for is, nobody loves to talk to dads like Taylor McGregor and the Marquee gang.
Right.
Reggie is not part of Brennan's life.
Yeah.
And
not
somebody,
even in a Cecil Fielder, Prince Fielder kind of way, like less.
Yeah. Somebody's going to need to remind Taylor that before the first game, where she wants to chat up, because she did interview Mark Leiter Jr. about his dad, and did not realize that there had been a horrible divorce. And put poor Mark in a very weird spot, fishing for nice things to say about Dad, when apparently Junior doesn't have a lot of nice things to say about Dad, which is very Prince and Cecil Fielder. But that's for a different reason. So the year I was with the Snappers, so was Prince. And Cecil was around quite a bit. You go into Don Money's office, and there Cecil would be with his big Yankee World Series ring on. We got to see Tony Gwynn quite a bit because Anthony Gwynn was on the team.
Yeah.
And one day I showed up for work, and one of the guys said, "We're not going to be seeing Cecil anymore." And I'm like, "Why is that?" He said, Prince just got served with papers meant for Cecil because it can't find Cecil. Apparently Cecil has been defrauding casinos in Las Vegas, and he was doing it with Prince's signing bonus. So he basically spent all of Prince's signing bonus, and that was pretty much the end of Cecil and Prince. And we didn't see any more of Cecil.
Can you imagine if a Taylor McGregor interview uncovered like something like that live on TV?
So, did you ever talk to your dad?
No.
Well, it's hard. I don't accept collect calls from prison, Taylor. Oh, is he in prison? Yeah, he stole all my money, and I sued him, and now he's in. Is there still? Well, I guess that would be fraud. You go to jail for that. It wouldn't be debtor's prison. You could actually go to prison for fraud, I think.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
When is the MLB draft? Is it next week?
It's during the All-Star Sunday.
Oh, that's right. It's now part of the festivities.
Yes.
How fun.
Not this coming Sunday, but the next one.
Right. Yeah.
I believe.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be this Sunday. There's still there's games still this weekend.
Yeah, but...
Right? I believe the Cubs have the Orioles next week, and then somebody else, and then it's the All-Star break.
Well, the draft starts Sunday the 17th and ends on Tuesday the 19th.
Okay, yeah. So a week from this coming Sunday is the draft.
Yeah.
And try as they may to make the draft a thing, it's just really hard because we haven't seen very many of the guys. Like, if you're a big college baseball fan, you've seen some of them.
Right.
But you didn't see the high school kids. And I'm sure you didn't see the community college kids. Right. So it's just a lot of... it's a draft where you're reliant completely on the experts to tell you, to get you excited or mad about your team's picks. In the most recent Remember This Crap, it was 2010, and we were like, oh, who did the Cubs draft that year? And Mike's like, I think that was the Javi Baez draft. Like, no, that was 11. And I looked and went, oh, God. It was, do you remember, the Cubs picked three spots after Chris Sale. The Cubs picked a diminutive pitcher from an obscure college who had mononucleosis. They drafted Hayden Simpson.
Oh, that's right. Hayden Simpson.
Just about the worst draft pick in Cubs history. He didn't do anything. So I was thinking about who the Cubs should take this year. Is there a way? I don't know the ins and outs of the draft. Could they just draft Shohei Ohtani? Just walk up and hand Rob Manfred the card. The Cubs have drafted. Wait, can you guys do this? We don't know. Shohei Ohtani. I guess he's a Cub now. Sorry, Angels.
I'm not 100% certain, Andy, but I think you cannot draft anybody from certain countries.
Oh, that's right. That's the only thing stopping. They need the international draft to draft Shohei. That's right. It's the only reason that my plan won't work.
Right.
Oh, damn.
Well, that he has a team, but
Are we sure that's a deal breaker?
It is the Angels.
Been a lot of changes in the laws these days. I don't know if that's a crime anymore.
The Angels are willing to commit crimes, but I don't know if the Cubs could commit their own crime to steal Ohtani. I don't know if that would work.
Another idea I have for the Cubs. I'm full of them. They should take the only one they've used so far is my nickname for the extra runner in. It's really caught on. JD used it again the other night, and Beth Mowens was doing the game with him, and he's like I forget who it was, Nico or somebody trots out at the top of the 10th, and JD goes, Nico's the Manfred Mann here in extra innings, and Beth was like, oh, like the band. And I'm saying, I'm like, it's mine. He's using my joke, and I'll never get credit for it because it's marquee, and I do nothing but rag on them. I'll never, but I know. The listeners,
you made that T-shirt yet?
They all know. I still haven't made the T-shirt. No, I got to find. I was thinking you had a great idea that it needs to have Rob on it, and we have to have. I'm like, maybe I can play with like a Alfred E. Newman because he's got the teeth.
Ron Howard's brother sort of looks like screwed up
right,
Rob Manfred.
That's a good idea. Maybe I could probably call Clint and just ask him to send over a picture that I can use. We'll get on that.
I have taken a picture of Rob Manfred myself that you can have.
Have you?
I have. Yeah, it was at the Royals World Series that one year.
Did you? Were you in the clubhouse after they won it?
Well, I think they did it on the field. Yes, but they also.
My only question is, did you get to meet the guy from Ford who gave out the truck?
The strange.
It's the greatest part of a trophy presentation ever. Is he clearly had this thing memorized,
right? And
he was going to say it no matter how fast it came out,
right?
He was going to get through it, and that was when the Giants won, though, right? Wasn't he giving the truck to Madison Bumgarner?
Yeah, that was the one you're thinking of.
The year before.
Now, to present the MVP award presented by Chevrolet, we have from Chevrolet, the regional zone manager, Rick Wilde.
Thanks. Madison, congratulations. As the official sponsor or the official vehicle of Major League Baseball, Chevrolet is proud to participate in this prestigious award. Along with our dealers, we are also extremely honored to give back to this sport by supporting baseball in cities and towns across this nation. At Chevrolet, we have also been proud of the latest and greatest technology in our truck lineup, which is the all-new 2015 Chevy Colorado. It combines class-winning and leading technology and stuff with Wi-Fi powered by OnStar. sitting there on screen to recognize your performance in this 2014 World Series. I proudly present to you very own set of keys to a brand new 2015 Chevy Colorado. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
The only guy I've ever seen be truly excited that they were getting a vehicle was Ben Zobrist. Like right. He thought that was you could just tell he thought that was like the coolest thing ever. He's like, right. I get to keep this? He's like, good. Is there a way I can shelter it from my wife? Just in case. She's going to want to let the pastor drive it, and I'm not going to let her do that. There's something going on there. I know it. No, Ben was like legit. Just because he's the nicest guy in the world, I think. Right. He's basically like he's like making the car guy feel good by being excited that he gets the car. Right. Where the other guys are like, oh, I'm not going to drive this piece of shit. I already got 11 cars nicer than this. What am I going to do with this? I guess I can donate it to the local junior high or something. I don't know. Oh, but I think that would be great. There's a column idea for you. Track down the guy from Ford. See what he's up to. Where are they now? He's probably a vice president at Ford now, making.
I'm going to look for that ceremony on YouTube and start my research.
Yeah, you should. It's well worth it. Okay, so because the draft is kind of a dud. I mean, I get it. You have to have it. You got to stock these teams somehow. Sure. I have a better idea what baseball should do. And I was thinking about it. I gave this a lot of thought. You're going to really enjoy this, I think, my idea. I gave it some thought, and I was thinking, okay, so they should do this after the season. I thought, no, they shouldn't. They should do it during the season. Here's my thought. Based on the idea of the Rule 5 draft, here's what I think they should do. So we get to the All-Star game, and every team can protect 14 players on their 40-man roster. And every team can lose up to 2 players. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to go, and I think it would be fun to have like a lottery. So we get Rob up there spinning turning the thing with the little ping pong balls rolling around, and he pulls it out, and he's like, hey, it's the Cubs. And the Cubs now get their pick of any player they want that's not protected on any other team. And when the season resumes on Friday, that dude's a Cub. I mean, why not?
Kurt Flood rolling over in his grave, but
you have to inherit the contract. It's part of it. If the guy's going to be a free agent, but you want him, you're going to get him, and he's still going to be a free agent. If all of a sudden some guy signed a contract, you're like, well, I like that. That seems like a good deal. Oh, they didn't protect him? He's ours.
This seems like something that they would do in European soccer.
It probably is something they do.
Probably is
in European soccer. Maybe that's where I saw the idea. Actually, they could do. I don't know if you've ever watched them do the World Cup pairings, where they play the weird music and they have like the different colored ping pong balls, and then one guy picks out a ping pong ball, and then somebody else pulls like a ribbon out of something with a name on it, and they say it with the most hilarious accent possible. Right. They're like, Bangladesh. I was like, oh, good. And then there's always complications. Okay, Bangladesh, they should be in Pod 4, but they can't because Thailand is already in there, and they can't play Thailand. So now they're going to go to Pod 6. And everybody's like, what are we? Just tell us who they're going to play later. Why are we watching this? That'd be the same idea. They could be part of All-Star Week. Think about how excited all of a sudden teams would be coming out of the All-Star, because how much fun is it? Like, one of the cool things after the trade deadline, because I'm a nerd, is watching the guys, like seeing the guys in their new uniforms and trying to figure out what number. Like, well, he can't be 17. They already got a 17. What number is he going to be? Oh, it would be chaos through the whole league. And since they've already thrown, like, the regular season is a dud now anyway, because they added the extra playoff teams and half teams aren't trying to win. You have to. They're already trying to manufacture excitement with the Manfred Mann, and with this, they're gonna make the bases like 6 feet wide next year, and they're gonna do all this other stuff. Why not just have they can call it the Superdraft, and you have the Superdraft at the All-Star game, and think about how pissed a bunch of guys would be, because there'd be All-Stars that are getting ready to play the next day, and they're like, fuck, I got traded, What am I? I'm a Ranger? I don't want to play for the Rangers. Well,
they'd have 2 days, Andy. It wouldn't be the next day. They'd have a couple days.
Yeah, that's right. Do they no longer remember when they baseball in their wonderful way of showcase baseball? One year they just randomly decided they would play I believe they ended up replacing this with the Field of Dreams game. But remember, one year coming out of the All-Star game, all of a sudden Cubs and Cardinals had to play on Thursday, and it was the only game, and like this is gonna be a big deal. And it's like, no, they're gonna play 19 times this year. Oh, you're just inconveniencing the players by making them all come back a day early.
Your idea would encourage. Well, you'd have to have lots more trades because you'd have the imbalance of losing certain players in the draft. You wouldn't necessarily. But
say you're the Yankees, and somebody snags. They take Gleyber Torres off your hands.
Right.
If you still have a pick, and you're like, well, shit, we need a middle infielder, you just steal somebody else's middle infielder.
Yeah.
You know what would really happen? Kind of what happens in the expansion draft. There'd be a bunch of prearranged trades. Like, okay, so if you get the pick and you can do this instead of this, here, we'll give you this guy instead and give us that, which would increase the amount of like wheeling and dealing.
For sure.
I like this idea. Now I'm going to just all upset that they're not that I came up with this great idea and they're just never going to do it. And I'm just going to pine for the idea that I had that will never happen.
Well, they've already done your idea for Manfred Mann, even if they don't give you credit. So if they were to do more ideas from you, that would be, I don't want to say asking a lot, but I mean, it would be.
Honestly, I don't know what Theo's doing in his fancy phony baloney job, but I've already come up with better ideas on this podcast than he has. So I clearly should have that job.
I feel like, and I think I don't think your idea is going to happen, but.
You don't?
I don't, but someone else has had the idea to cut the season in two, like they did it after the strike in 81.
Oh, they do that in the low minor leagues too.
Yes. I don't think there's any way that maybe 10 years, but no longer than that. I think that's how they're going to do it. Yeah. And I'm not sure that they shouldn't.
My favorite thing about the split season in 81, because that was the year they did it because of the strike, was that the Cardinals had the best record in the National League East, and they didn't make the playoffs.
That's one people don't know that. People talk about the Reds, but the Cardinals.
Because they didn't win the first half and they didn't win the second half, and that's how you got in. The only way they could have got in is if the same team had won the first and second half, then they would have taken the second place team. It would have been them. But it wasn't. It was different teams, and so screw you, Cardinals. You can go home.
Maybe what they could do is just kind of amend that system a little bit and allow for the team with the best record at the end of the year to make the playoffs in some way. I think that's how you kind of get around that. So we don't have a Cardinals missing the playoffs or the Reds who had the best record in the league and didn't make the playoffs. I think you could.
Can we make it though so that if it's the Cardinals, they can't go? They're the exception.
Sure. I mean, we can at least that'll be in our proposal.
We know what will happen because what will happen is they'll somehow end up giving them extra compensatory picks.
Right. Give them extra compensatory.
They just seem to get them. They just anytime anything happens to any team, the Cardinals get an extra draft pick.
Right. Oh yeah, you're a mid-level exception. That's not the language, but it's whatever they call it.
So it's funny because as I was thinking about this today, I was thinking, there's kind of a loose structure for this already in place. And I don't know if you know this, but this is a very dark scenario. But there is a procedure to follow if, say, one of the team's plane crashes. And you have to restock a franchise.
Right.
There's rules already in place. They would have to do that. They basically would have a draft. And you would protect X amount of people, and then the team that basically lost their entire active roster to, they got Patsy Cline into a mountain, or Buddy Holly, maybe.
Patsy Cline, if it's a mountain.
Yeah. What did they just hit a cornfield? Buddy Holly and Big Bopper.
Yeah, I think so. I think they flew upside down or whatever, wind shear. I don't know.
I could call Gary Busey and ask him. I'm sure he knows.
I'm sure he remembers that.
I played Buddy Holly? You did, Gary. You did. You were pretty good, actually. All right, good. So there is a procedure in place for that. And you could kind of follow the same thing, except without the disaster. Think how much more fun this would be than that would be.
Right.
I still want it to happen. The other thing is, I think, so they talked about the special powers Rob Manfred has gotten. Like he gets to pick an extra player for each All-Star team.
Right.
And apparently they're going to be Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera because got to watch the guys who can't play anymore play one more time.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, if you're going to give him extra powers, I think he needs to just at random times, whenever he feels it. Okay, this is another thing that got me thinking, is way too many position players pitching. It happens all the time. An egregious example of it was the other night. The Cubs had a 6-run lead in the ninth against the Brewers. The Brewers had Brousseau, or the guy's the third baseman. He was pitching.
Yeah, Mike Brousseau. Yeah.
I'm like, you're only down 6 to the Cubs.
I know.
Why are you giving up? I think Manfred should be able to tell teams that a certain guy is now a two-way player. And the first guy I think he should do is I think he should tell the Cubs that Seiya Suzuki has to pitch for them now. He's still going to play right field, but he's also going to pitch.
Right.
And we'll see if he's the next Shohei. Because I think he is. I think it'll work out great for Seiya. A couple of weeks ago we had a fill-in for you, Mike Presnowski, and one of the things I talked about was it's not official, I don't think. Like it's kind of an but there is not an MLB. You can't buy it through the team shop, but there's a jersey you can buy in Chicago. It's a Seiya home pinstripe jersey where his name is on the back in kanji in the actual, and it's awesome. And he should wear that.
Yeah.
Why wear the Americanized version of your name?
You mean for every game?
Yes, that should be like his. Yeah. And they should let guys do that. That would be cool. I guarantee they'd sell more of them.
Right.
The people who are like, that's a cool looking jersey. I'll buy that one. Right. Who's this guy? And then you could, how like girls on spring break who get tattoos and they get like Chinese characters and the tattoo artist puts a completely different one on than the one. It doesn't mean what they thought.
Right.
You could do that to kids, or you could do it to people who buy the jerseys.
Right. And
you could just say, oh yeah, it says Suzuki, and really it says, I eat boogers in Japanese or whatever, and the guy's proudly wearing it around all day.
I like that title as just for anything. Girls on spring break who get tattoos. It's like, remember a Kentucky Fried Movie? Catholic school girls in trouble.
The Zuckers.
And I like your idea with the Seiya jersey because it's also in the spirit of what they do in Japan, where they wear the English. I think I don't know why exactly that they do that. And
it's always been weird to me that that they do that. That they anglicize
an homage to American inventing the baseball, and I don't know, but it's kind of cool, and it sort of helps if you happen to be watching Japanese baseball, if you don't know all the players.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably like, all right, for the stupid Americans,
right?
Just put the name on in English, and then they'll know who it is. Remember, it was like a big deal when the Mariners put Ichiro on the back of his jersey instead of Suzuki.
Yeah.
In fact, the Mariners had a very funny commercial then where all the guys were wearing their first names. Like Brett Boone is taking a bag, it just says Brett. And it was funny. And so there were like three marks standing next to each other, and Lou Piniella looks at the guy and is like, we're gonna have to fix this. But yeah, I don't know why. Maybe Seiya doesn't want to, but I don't think he gets the option. I think he should at least have the option,
right?
Because we know it exists. You can buy it at like Sports World or whatever.
Are we still doing Players Weekend? Maybe we could do it for that.
I don't know. Like Brad Boxberger, he got to wear emojis, right?
He did.
Didn't he have a box and a burger? Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
I think yes. I always said that if I got to play on Players Weekend and I was a batter, my nickname on the back would be In Play Runs.
With a parentheses.
And if I was a pitcher, I could do In Play Outs. Yes, with the parenthesis around the S. I think that'd be a good one. Yeah, the last time they did the Players Weekend thing, they did the stupid Spy versus Spy jerseys, right? Where they were either all white or they were all black. It was just awful.
You can't see.
It's like, who was the idiot who came up with this brilliant idea?
Right. At least we know not to do that again. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they'd love to mess up the uniform. Those awful 4th of July trucker hats. Those are embarrassing. Just terrible. The
DeGrom, the St. Lucie, that might take the cake.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. It had like a weird, there was like this big brown swath across the front and then a logo. It could be like back in the day, somebody could have said, I think Yosh Kawano should pitch for the Cubs. And poor little Yosh has to go out there with the gardener's hat on. He probably would have been more effective than some of the guys that pitched, especially in the early 80s. I don't think that rule change is going to fly. I got to tell you, I think I have a lot of great ideas. I don't think they're going to take any of them. It's kind of depressing.
Well, be happy with Manfred Mann.
To be the one thing I accomplish in my illustrious career as a half-assed part-time writer and podcaster. On one local broadcast, I slipped a nickname in for something that hopefully will go away. What is your stance on the efficacy of the free runner in extra innings?
Oh, I hate it. It's just, I hate to sound like an old man, but it's just, it ceases to become baseball. I think it's not necessary. I think what they should do is have ties, because ties do have happened in the history of baseball. They even put them in the standings at one time. If you want to stop the game, then stop the game. We don't need a winner. Give people, give them a point for getting there to a tie. If you need to stop the game, it's better than having whatever this monstrosity is, where it's just you put a runner on and it just screws up the stats and it's not baseball anymore. It's something else. So I hate it. I hate it.
It feels to me like it's a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah, there's something. I understand not wanting to have a 17-inning game, but I don't know. There just aren't that many of them. But like I said, don't play them. Don't play then. Then stop the game and we're tied, and that's it. And there's no winner or loser.
The other thing is, how is it any different? I guess the only thing it really changes is, instead of a string of scoreless innings in extra innings, you end up with a string of one-run
crooked innings. Yeah, or
because you do see it occasionally where a game will still go 12 or 13 innings, and chances are that free runner scored most of the time. Because if your team is the road team and they only score one run in the 10th, you feel like, oh shit. Because it's almost a given, unless you're the Cubs, who 9 of the last 10 times they've come up with the free runner, they haven't scored him. How about that? 90% of the time. But every other team.
Is that legit, or are you being?
No, that's legit.
Really?
That's courtesy of Evan Altman, another Cub writer, who
I'm glad people pay attention.
Was so frustrated by it, he looked it up and went, "Oh God."
It's true.
So other than the Cubs, teams seem to score that guy. So it doesn't. What does that accomplish then? Instead of if it's the same, it was Jim DeShays who basically said, it's fine to have that extra runner, but it shouldn't start in the 10th.
Right.
Play a couple. Play, if you get to the 12th, fine. Throw the extra guy out. Most extra games would be over by then. You wouldn't need it. But then, because if the whole goal of it is to just avoid the one odd, like you said, a 17-inning game, or then the Cardinals and the Cardinals and Mets played like a 23-inning game a few years ago, some ridiculous thing like that. If that's the only thing you're trying to, that it is effectively stopping, that hardly ever happens. So save the extra runner. The other thing you could do would be then to start adding runners. Mm-hmm. So in the 10th, you get one guy on. If it gets to the 11th, then you got runners at first and second.
I'd like to see how we put 4 guys on. A
couple of guys just standing. Well, with the way the White Sox run bases,
right,
it would look perfectly normal to have a guy just like wandering between second and third.
I stand correct.
By far the best part of that, the ridiculous triple play they hit into the other night, the 8-5 triple play against the Twins, was the shot of Tony La Russa, bewildered. I mean, he's at that age now. He's what, 76, 77?
78.
78. Where he doesn't close his mouth a lot. So he always has the look perpetually. But then you could literally, as they cut to him sitting on this weird perch where he was like higher than he should be, and like he was on like a high chair or something in the dugout.
It's too easy to make him look like a buffoon.
So, he's already got the mouth half open. And then when he got confused, it opened about 30% more. And then he really knew he was confused. Oh, what was that?
He turned 78 in October, by the way. So his 78th year.
Do you think he dyes his hair?
Do I think? There's no. I mean, I hope so. I hope that's what that is. It's too. I mean, in a way, it's too bad. He was doing hairspray commercials. That was his. When he became famous or whatever, that was his thing. He did hairspray commercials.
Well, I mean,
print ads.
For a 78-year-old man, he's still got a good head of hair.
Yeah, he's got a bald spot, but he's
right. But he can maneuver around that without having to go full Lou Henson.
Right.
But it's like, okay, Tony, who are you fooling with the brown hair?
Right.
He's let it go, man. You're old.
I mean, I wonder how white it would be if he didn't do anything, but he's got to salt and pepper a little bit.
I'm trying to think what year it was. I think it must have been 17 when all of a sudden Joe Madden's hair was getting slightly darker.
Right.
And then finally after it's, they do the post game and then its hair was kind of white, but not real white. And then the next day it was kind of light brown. And then and finally somebody asked him and he was ready. And he basically gave a plug for whatever shampoo he was using that would gradually turn his hair brown. And they're like, why are you doing it? He's like, I had a friend gave it to me. It's like, oh, cool. Well, there's a perfect explanation.
Right.
Well, if a friend gave it to you, Joe, of course you got to use it. Are you going to stick with it? No. At some point, I'll probably shave it off and grow it back white. And that's exactly what he did. But he's constantly amusing himself.
We talked about that was us that were talking about his, it was.
About his demise?
Yeah, his demise and the haircut that he got and that he wanted to spring on.
That was great. That's the best. So for people who don't know, the Angels in the throes of what ended up being an 11-game losing streak.
14?
14.
That was 14.
So they were at 10. And Joe decided he's going to fire up the troops. Got a mohawk. Shows up for work that day. Perry, not Perry Mason, but Perry Manasian. Joe just stopped by the office. So he gets the mohawk and gets fired. And nobody ever gets to see the mohawk.
Oh,
he just got a mohawk. It's like, I'm sure his wife liked it anyway, so it didn't matter.
Sure.
All right. Well, I think we've solved a lot of problems tonight.
That's why we do this.
Yes. Livened up the draft. Some great ideas about all kinds of stuff. I can't wait. I'll be expecting the call from Rob Manfred to walk him through the logistics of the Superdraft. That should happen. And I don't know why they couldn't do it this year.
48 hours even.
Yeah, he just tells the teams everybody starts showing up on Sunday night for the All-Star festivities. He's like, oh, by the way, on Tuesday we're going to have a little draft. It's probably going to be about 60 players changing teams. So get ready for that. Like, what? Yeah. It could happen, or it might not happen. All right, well, we're getting now down. The All-Star game is looming. The trade deadline is coming up. I'm sure you have circled on your calendar coming up right after the trade deadline, the Field of Dreams game with the Cubs and the Reds. That's a great showcase for baseball. But it's gonna be fall before you know it.
Oh yeah, Bears.
My grandpa used to always say there'd be all the 4th of July stuff, and they'd be like, "Well, summer's over." Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot. Summer's not over, folks. Although the days are getting shorter, slowly, but they're getting shorter. All right. Well, so the next time we do this, the day will be slightly shorter than today.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
We'll see you then.
Okay.
Many of us have herpes.